Welcome to the New Change in the Map, the series about, well, new changes on the world map. However, this update is a bit more subtle. In the Pacific Ocean, there are multiple territories controlled by France. One of those is called New Caledonia. Since the Cold War, European colonialism has heavily declined, and most European nations rebranded what few overseas territories they had left. For France, there were a few outcomes. Outcome 1, they became an overseas department. This means they're a constituent part of the core French state, even if they're really far away. Think of it as like how Alaska and Hawaii are US states, despite being further away and physically separate. Outcome 2, they became an overseas territory. A part of the core French state, but not enough for representation. Currently, the only overseas territory for France is their claim over parts of Antarctica and a few nearby islands that are basically uninhabited, so not a big deal. Outcome 3, they became an overseas collectivity. This basically means they're not a part of the core French state, but they do have their own local government, with minor amounts of autonomy. But they don't have their own official flags, are still under the French Constitution, and so on. But they do have French citizenship. Outcome 3.5, French Polynesia. For some reason, French Polynesia has a unique status of overseas country inside the Republic. Legally speaking, this is basically 99% the same as an overseas collectivity, but they are the only one to have their own sanctioned official flag besides the French one, and they can elect their own president. Otherwise, though, the French government still has a lot of say on upper-level stuff and is responsible for their defense, currency, and so on. Outcome 4 is New Caledonia, which since 1998 has had its own unique status of sui generis collectivity. So imagine all the stuff overseas collectivities have, but their local government has more power, and like French Polynesia, they do have a president. Weirdly though, they are not allowed to have their own official flag, confirmed as of February of 2025. But more importantly, in 1998 they were granted 3 independence referendums. This has been contentious due to the fact that the indigenous Kanak population make for slightly under the majority, while Europeans and other minorities make up the rest. In 2018, the first vote failed. In 2020, it was slightly closer, but the vote still failed. There was only one allowed referendum left, and it was set for 2021. But there were demands by indigenous groups to postpone it due to COVID being particularly devastating for them, getting over a quarter of New Caledonians sick with it. However, France decided to keep it at the same date, and so the result was conveniently more lopsided against independence. Oh, and how even more convenient, that was the last allowed referendum. I guess the issue is settled. So in 2023 and 2024, the French government decided to attempt voter reform. There was a heavy debate around this, as New Caledonia had a lot of foreign residents that previously weren't allowed to vote due to having only lived there for under 10 years. Many European residents living there wanted the perks of French citizenship, but the benefits of having things like, different taxes. The indigenous population, being just under majority, saw this as a threat to their ability to govern their own affairs, and a subtle way to perhaps prevent any chance of future independence should they ever be granted a referendum ever again. Riots broke out in New Caledonia in May of 2024 and lasted for the rest of the year, resulting in 14 deaths, 486 injuries, and a lot of arrests and property damage. This led to France attempting to find a solution. On July 12, 2025, the Bougival Accord was signed. What's the compromise? The sui generis collectivity of New Caledonia will now become the state of New Caledonia. Oh, so sovereign independence? No, not really. The state of New Caledonia will be a status enshrined in the French Constitution, meaning citizens in New Caledonia will still be dual citizens of France. However, there will be more autonomy granted to them as well as the recognition of New Caledonian as an official nationality. So, like Aruba is to the Netherlands? No, slightly better. New Caledonia will be able to conduct its own foreign relations. So while it's not a perfect match, it sounds like that'll make it the equivalent of the relationship between the Cook Islands and New Zealand? This would kind of make it an associated state. Some details of this agreement are still unclear, like will they be allowed to have their own local flag be official now? Will they still have their own semi-autonomous military? Time will tell, but I do think that the Cook Islands and New Zealand is the closest equivalent of what this kind of a relationship is promising. Both pro- and anti-independence factions seem to think that this compromise was acceptable as a step forward. It'll just need to be approved in, you guessed it, a 2026 referendum. Meanwhile, the whole Chagos Islands thing is moving along, even if slowly. At the very least, nothing appears to be stopping it. But now let's check in and see how the Bougainville independence thing is going. Yeah, I gotta be honest, the Papua New Guinea government is really procrastinating this thing. I wish I could give more details, but they don't even have any official timetables yet. Either way, this has been the new change in the map. I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I'll see you guys next time.